This episode of Worktapes is brought to you by Eastside Music Supply. Eastside Music Supply is a music shop in Nashville, Tennessee. It's my go-to spot for all things gear related, whether it's guitars, bass guitars, if I need work on my gear, if I need to buy a pedal that's really cool and awesome, that's super unique, they've got that kind of stuff there. They've got cool merch, audio gear, all the stuff. You're dealing with the best people in the industry, unlike those big box stores that don't really care. Eastside Music Supply cares. They care about your tone, they care about your experience. Go to eastsidemusicsupply.com. If you're not local to Nashville, they will hook you up. Tell them when you go that Brandon from Worktapes sent you. You good?
I'm good.
I'm trying to make sure I'm good. That's why you're asking if you're good.
Are you good?
I'm good. If you're good.
Are you good?
We're good. Welcome to Worktapes. This is a podcast where we tear apart songs. Why was the song written? What's it about? What's the context and emotion behind it? Where were you at the time? What were you going through? How did certain lines come to you? What's the inspiration? How long did it take to write? I'm Brandon Carswell, and I'm fascinated with songwriting and how songs are built from the ground up. It's easy to hear a full production song on the radio and dismiss its origin story. I want to hear the rough draft of the song or the work tape. I want to explore the very beginning of how songs that move us and make us move are born.
I crack a smile, but I'm bleeding inside. Rack up the miles, leaving you behind. Running down the dream while you're standing by this time. Can't get you out of my mind. Leave the light on for me. You know I can't sleep. Running a flat line, heartbeat. Dying to get back to Tennessee. Tears on the telephone. You know I can't let.
Welcome to Worktapes, everyone. I am Brandon Carswell. I am joined today by a fantastic singer-songwriter artist I've known for quite a while, and I'm happy to get reacquainted with you today. Matt is known for his distinct blend of pop, folk, and hip-hop. This unique sound has produced hits like Nothing Left to Lose and Trainwreck, giving way to a 2006 Dove Award.
Trainwreck.
Trainwreck.
I haven't heard that in a while.
It's a good song.
Thanks, man.
You're interrupting my intro.
I'm sorry.
You want me to keep going?
Carry on.
He's toured with John Mayer, Sheryl Crow, Train, Mutemath, and Keane, to name a few. Collaborations with Trent Dabbs, Kate York, Paul Moak, Matthew Perryman Jones, Brook the Bluff. Today we discuss a song called Headlights Home, and we listen to the work tape. Welcome, Matt Kearney.
It's awesome to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, man. It's a pleasure.
I'm glad this worked out. I'm, as everyone that regularly listens to this podcast knows, I'm really close with Micah Tawlks, who produced this song that we're going to talk about today. And he was kind enough to kind of give us the jolt to do this episode.
Mike is awesome.
He's so good.
Mike is like, I just was texting him, and I'm just a big fan of him. I've known him for years, back when we were both getting our start, and he actually delivered flowers. He used to deliver flowers.
Yep.
I don't know if he'll care if I mention that.
No, I did too.
I was working at Starbucks. Yeah. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife, I ordered her flowers for Valentine's Day, and she was nannying for a family, and there was like a 5-year-old girl, and Micah was the delivery guy, and he knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and she was like really pissed off. She went and she's like, Annie, there's another man at the door with flowers. She's like, what about Matt? You said you liked him.
Mike is a good looking dude also.
Yeah.
She had room to be annoyed by that.
Yeah.
First question out of the gate. Let's just get it right. You spell your name with one T.
One T.
How many people get this wrong? How many misprints have you had? That's my first
always.
question.
Yeah, lots.
Do you have any merch with 2 T's?
Yes,
that I can have?
A lot of designs. If you know how many designs I've gotten back from designers and there's 2 T's, or Kearney, they spell it
Kearney.
Kearney it's Kearney, but it's spelled like Kearney. And one T. It was actually a misspell. My mother misspelled it on my birth certificate.
Oh, your whole full name, like Matthew with
Mathew. Yeah, I didn't actually find out till the 8th grade when I had spelled it MAT, and I would cross both T's with one line. I thought that was super efficient.
Yeah.
And then in the 8th grade, I pulled out the, how they give you those like decorative footprint things from the hospital. They put your footprint on it. They write in cursive, Matthew Kearney, 9 pounds or 8 pounds or whatever. 9's a lot. Whatever you weigh, birth date. And I pulled it out one day and I noticed it was a beautiful script, Mathew, and there was like a red T drawn in with red ballpoint pen of these pens I'd seen around our house. And I was like, Mom, what's this? She's like, oh, they spelled it wrong, so I fixed it.
Yeah.
And I was like, just because you wrote a T on this thing in our like drawer
doesn't make it legal.
Yeah, it didn't change the spelling of my name. So we pulled out my birth certificate and it had one T.
I'm fully expecting to get a misprint merch from you now.
Okay, I'll try to work on it.
If we can get that, that'd be great. I also want to make mention that I've never seen you without a hat on.
Yes.
And so I wore a hat today. I've never worn a hat. So
you look good.
Just to
it's like my Superman cape.
Match your energy. I'm wearing my Eastside Music Supply hat.
What is Eastside Music Supply?
It's so interesting you asked. They're the sponsor of our program today.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a guitar store in East.
I think I've been there.
Yeah, in East Nashville.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Anyone asking, just listen to the top of this episode and you can learn about eastsidemusicsupply.com.
Love it.
How many hats do you have?
It depends on which era. There's definitely a hat for each era.
Of Matt Kearney?
Yeah.
Like you have dress hats and you have these.
Well, there's like the fedora era.
Well, like
baseball cap.
What about if you're playing a show, you have a different hat for that?
There's like seasons. I have some there's probably 3 or 4 in rotation for each kind of season. Some go out. Like I was wearing like a more golf style, like those like Scottish.
Yeah.
Like that was like Young Love era.
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, kind of. That back when we were all wearing suspenders.
Yeah. I love that.
City Black and White was the black fedora.
Oh yeah.
Nothing Left to Lose was like more like a army style kind of green thing.
Yeah.
Now I kind of have my pick of them.
You can do what you want at this point.
Exactly.
You've been doing this long enough. Wear whatever hat you want.
Yeah.
Let's get into your background. Early influences. Where did you come from? Why did you start writing songs? What is it? What appeals to you about music?
Yeah, I'm from Eugene, Oregon, 6th generation Oregonian. So when you were playing Covered Wagon or Oregon Trail as a kid, did you play that game?
Yes.
That was my family. They came over to Oregon on covered wagons.
And they died of dysentery.
Yes, like that's the joke we have in our families. Like everyone else died. We got strong blood.
It's like the weirdest diseases also.
Yeah.
Not anything normal.
Dysentery. That's a bad way to die. Just poop yourself to death. And we grew up in Oregon, in Eugene, which is a college town, and it's kind of like small. It's actually a really cool sized town to grow up in. I didn't realize it, but it's 150,000. Arts were celebrated. Was very cultured in some ways, mostly white people. So cultured white people. But yeah, it was just like a really lovely place to grow up. Arts were really celebrated. I had a lot of artists in my family, painters. My uncle painted, my grandma painted, my step uncle. They were either lawyers or painters, which is kind of the soup that formed me.
Yeah.
And I was a soccer player, but found this teacher that was a art teacher, Sue Markley, who just really inspired me. And all of a sudden I found these kind of creative outlets that I realized, wow, this is really how I'm wired. Like creative expression is like something that deeply moves me. And music hadn't taken root in my life as a musician, but I loved it. I mean, I would like I remember like even Bobby Brown tapes in the 8th grade, like music just moved me.
Where did you find that kind of reference? Because I know that you are into hip hop.
Yeah.
We kind of mentioned that in your intro, but who was it, or how did you find that style of music early on that influenced you into doing more, like your earlier stuff has more rap?
Yeah, like spoken word, hip hop stuff. Yeah. I mean, one thing was that's all I could do. So growing up in Eugene in the 90s, in high school, you know, the bands that were really celebrated in my high school were like Tribe Called Quest and Sublime, and all the East Coast stuff was actually really popular. We were on the West Coast, but we didn't listen to a lot of West Coast rap unless it was like San Francisco. So you could listen to like Far Side, and there was a band, you know, Latif and Lyrics Born, DJ Shadow, all these like Bay Area bands, or it was like Nas, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul was just like massively popular in my group of friends. And so, I don't know, I just really loved it. Meanwhile, I was listening to a lot of like jazz, and I bought this console record player that I still have. It's like a Magnavox, you know, table. It looks like a little piece of furniture. Brought it with me everywhere since I was 15. And I would listen to Billie Holiday, and it just really, I remember I would just be in tears listening to music, and it just really meant there was nothing that meant as much to me as music, listening to music. And during that period, I would, maybe my senior year, junior year of high school, on the way to my art classes, photography and all these things that I lived at. I was a terrible student, but I would live in the darkroom. Just 7 periods out of 9, I'd be in the darkroom just working. And there was a piano, there was the practice, you would go through the music hall, or the drama department to get to the arts department. And they had these practice rooms with pianos. And I learned if you just push like the black keys, you're all in one key. You know, you're like the
Can't mess up.
Yeah, pentatonic scale of F sharp or C sharp or whatever you're in. And I would just sit for hours and just play, just mess with it, and just like be in tears. How
old were you?
I was probably 16, 17. Be in tears. And when I was always a good writer. I was a terrible student, but I could always write. It always made sense to me. Words, putting them together in an emotional way made sense to me. And I had a teacher who slid a poem across my desk one day, and she was like, "You should do this. Like, you're good at this." And it was the first teacher that ever told me I'm good at anything other than my photography teacher. So I was like, whoa, someone told me I was good at something. And I barely got into college to play soccer. I was a soccer player this whole time. I was playing at Chico State, and I didn't have any other major. I had to pick a major, so I picked an English major because I was like, if I can write a paper, I can get like a B in the class. If I have to like do physics, it's over. Like there's no, I started copying my physics homework in like freshman year of high school, so I'm a little behind at this point. And I became an English major, and during that period, my roommate had a guitar, and I would do the same kind of things I would do in the practice studios, and I would just start writing songs. Rewind back to high school, the one thing I could do musically was, we're all listening to hip hop music. We thought we were kind of like, we knew what was going on, is I would just freestyle all the time.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's what we would do.
If that's a thing you do.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm as sharp as I was back then.
I'm not going to ask you to do it. Yeah. I'm just asking you if that's how you.
Yeah, that was how I started. Was you know, you'd be sitting because of the art world. All my friends were like these graffiti artists, and with that came like hip hop culture. Sure. So I got into that because it was kind of rebellious, and it was.
So you were tagging trains and stuff?
Yeah, we were actually. We were. There was a legal graffiti wall in Eugene. You know, these very progressive towns.
That seems to make it less fun.
Oh, it was awesome though, because I mean, I didn't really love defacing property. That wasn't very exciting to me. But the craft of it, and like these guys that were so good. My friend Brendan, who went by Tomb, T-O-M-B was like his tag. He was like a legend in Eugene. Yeah. And he was my dear friend. So I would just follow him around, and he would paint these really beautiful murals. I was never very good, but we would, on the way home, you would play like an Outkast instrumental or something, and you just jokingly make up songs.
Sure.
And weirdly, I was just it just was natural to me. Like
Good
I was
words.
I was good at putting them together. And the more you do it, you build this kind of like muscle memory where if you hit a rhyme, you've got like 5, you know where you're going to end.
Okay.
So you can say anything and it like builds on itself. And the more you do it, you have this crazy muscle memory of knowing rhymes, and you can kind of say whatever you want ending on these rhymes.
Right.
And
did you have stuff like pre-worked out?
No,
like,
no.
I mean, did you write poetry and like kind of reference that in your brain?
No, it was not ever written at all.
Okay.
It was more like juggling.
I always wonder if like some freestyles are like cheating.
Yeah.
Like they've sat down and written all this stuff out and memorized bits and pieces, and then they throw it together.
The skill is, as soon as you say a word, you know where you're going to rhyme with.
Okay.
So you can say anything ending on that rhyme. And it's like the more you do it, your brain instantly, like it's happening so fast.
Yes.
That you know where you're going. And you've done it enough that like maybe you have 3 or 4 rhymes that kind of, you know, whether you're going to say, it doesn't matter, I do it so much better than anybody, and they say I'm clever, or, you know, you're like, you know where you're going with these words. So I got really good at that till I was like, it was like my party trick, and every place I'd go, I would like get on stage or grab a microphone and just like make things up about the room. And my senior year, my Young Life leader had a 4-track Tascam tape recorder, and I started taking like instrumental beats. Like I took a Method Man beat, and I started writing down this, you know, rhyming was easy to me, and I started writing them down. And so I had that in the back of my mind. I had a couple tapes that I recorded. We recorded a diss tape my senior year about Sheldon High School. I'm sorry, Dan Drennan. You didn't deserve it. But going into college, when I grabbed my roommate's guitar, I kind of couldn't really sing. I didn't really have a 4-track tape anymore. And writing had become so much more interesting to me than just like making up freestyles at parties.
Right.
That I just started writing stuff down. And it was so much easier for me to write a song than to learn a song. You know, you just know 2 chords and say some stuff. I was like, this is easy. You know, 4 chords, like learn G chord, C chord, and just say stuff. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
That kind of started the whole beginning of my music career. And then people were hearing it and they're like, this is weird. Like, you're playing a guitar, you're kind of like talking. I couldn't really sing, but what I could sing had to be simple. So it was like innately catchy because it was kind of childish. And that recipe really kind of got me started.
So you really started your career in music later
pretty late.
Than most. I mean, there's not really a time you should start or not start, but as it goes, like a lot of artists are like, oh, I grew up in church, or I was a kid and I always wanted to do this. That wasn't you.
No, I didn't have any. Do
you think there's any benefit to starting late? Later in college, I guess, is when you started, right?
I mean, I think there's a strength to having limitations early on, but youthful passion, you can only do, and if those limitations create kind of a signature, then that's cool. You know, like the bands I love, and it's probably because this is how I'm wired. The artists I love have these like limitations, like Johnny Cash. You know, he can't really. He's just kind of. He's not like a singer. He's not like a player. Yeah. Or Bob Dylan.
Storyteller.
Yeah. Or Bob Marley, or like they kind of do this thing that's them.
Right.
And that's always been, those kind of artists are really interesting to me versus like, if you go to Berkeley and you're a virtuoso and you can play everything, I can see that there's a challenge of like, what is me? You know, like what defines me? All I had was what was me. That was nothing. I had nothing else. I could barely, I'm hanging on the whole time. What
do you think the draw to that is? Like, there's so you have the Johnny Cash figure. He can play a few chords. He can kind of sing. He can write a story for sure.
Yeah.
You compare that with someone like Tom York, Radiohead. Yeah. Super intricate music. It's still appealable. Not making that difference. But what's But there's a huge draw to like the simple man.
Yeah.
Or the simple woman in music.
Well, I mean, I can only speak for me, and I think it's like, one, you have to then, be able to tell a story. Your lyric, I mean, the lyric has to be a thing. If you're not playing the major seventh to the whatever, if the music is not the thing, like sonically, Sigur Rós being like,
yes,
they're gibberish. It's all these musical expressions, or symphony, like classical music is all counter melodies and melody and note choice. And that's the art of it. Yeah, it's probably coming from this kind of folk tradition, which is like, it's a lyric idea, image, picture driven, voice, perspective, those become the strength, or the thing that has to be strong if you're going to be simple.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a solo guy in that regard? Or did you think you wanted to be in a band?
Oh, I've never been in a band, so I didn't know any.
Didn't know the difference.
I would love, I'm envious of all my friends that are in bands, in that, when everything has to come from me or someone I mean, as I've done this longer, it's easier because you surround yourself with great people, and it's like I'm in a band at times. But, if you're if you're by yourself writing a song, there's no one else. Like, you need a bass part, you got to like figure it out, or program a drum.
Yeah.
There's not someone who's like going away and slaving over a guitar part as much as you are lyrics and a melody.
Right.
But no, I didn't. I've never been in a band. My last record, when we got Brook the Bluff in the studio with me, it was the closest I've ever felt to being in a band, and it was like awesome. It was like,
oh, and those guys are so good. They're so good.
I mean, I was just sitting back and like, usually in a studio setting, you're with people that are really good at what they do, and their tastes may not even be what they're playing. Like, they're trying to satisfy you. So if you're like, I want like early Police thing with like, what about more reverb, and like, what if the part went up, and they're looking for me for their cues. Whereas with the band, but Brook the Bluff, it was like, they'd never really been session musicians. All they'd been is in a band. So they only knew how to approach their parts they were playing like they had to live and die by these parts. And this is what, like, they would if they were making a record for their band. Like, I have to believe in this part.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting on the couch, and they were like encouraging each other, be like, that's awesome, man. Or what if they were all talking to each other about parts. I was sitting back being like, this is awesome. I love it. Whatever you're doing is sick.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So going back to Oregon before you moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
Did you move here for music? Was that the plan? Like, you got enough attention or enough people saying, hey, this is cool, you should do this?
It was we had no, what it was is Robert Marvin, who has like been a long time contributor of my music and writer and producer. He's produced Young Love, City Black and White, Nothing Left to Lose, January Flower, a lot of my records. When I was in college and I fell in love with songwriting, I was home for Thanksgiving, and I happened into his studio, and we recorded a song, and it was like the first time I'd been in a recording studio really ever in my life. And he's like, let's write a song tonight. And we just like, okay. And we like, back when you could just write a song, produce it, mix it, it's done. Yeah. Like from 11 o'clock till 4 a.m. Like, we're like young hip hop artists or something. I don't know. We just did it. And it was like a drug. I was like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. So every time I was home in Eugene, he was going to school at U of O in Eugene, and I was in Chico, playing soccer and writing songs on my guitar. Every time we were home, we'd go in and record some music together. And this is probably a year and a half. And I started accumulating maybe 5 or 6 songs I'd ever recorded. And meanwhile, he was producing other bands, and one of them had gotten some attraction in Nashville. So he called me. We're just buddies at this time. I talk to him all the time. He's like, hey, I'm driving to Nashville. If you help me drive across the country, we'll take like a month and record music.
Oh, cool.
So he could have literally said anywhere. He could have said Topeka, Kansas, and I would have wanted to go with him. So we packed up his truck in Portland, where he was from, and we slept in the back of it, put all the clothes and put the mattress on top, and we just drive for like 17 hours, pull over. He had no AC because we're from the Northwest. You're like, you don't need air conditioning. You know, we had sleeping bags that were like meant for, you know, mountain temperatures. So we pull up in Oklahoma in August, you know, and just wake up dripping in sweat on the side of the highway in these like 20-degree bags, you know. And we got to Nashville, and eventually got an apartment in Hillsborough Village. I helped him move in, and we set up a little studio. We set up the studio in the bedroom, and we had a mattress out in the living room. We slept on it together, which we had no sheets. We thought that was like somehow less like intimate if there's just no sheets on a mattress.
Seems about right, yeah.
Which is just gross if you think about it. You're just like two dudes sleeping on like the mattress. You can't wash that.
You're trying to justify a situation.
Yeah. You wake up with like the paisley print on your face, you know?
Yeah.
And by the end of August, I had maybe 7-8 songs at this time. And after about a month of being in Nashville, there was like through the people that had liked his production, had heard some of our demos, like Toby Mac, like these people in like the CCM world, and they heard the demos and they were like, dude, this is good. You could do this. And that was kind of all the fuel I needed. And I dropped out of school. And
so your early writing was more informed by your faith, or did you just chase that road because that's where the attention was coming from? Like CCM was listening, or was it?
No, I think it was interest. Yeah, I mean,
because your first thing was with Sparrow, or am I wrong on that?
It was.
Sorry, not.
First thing was with Columbia, but I licensed it to In Pop, which was like a small label.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
And that was like the smartest thing I ever did. I didn't realize it at the time. That was what your first question. My faith was like a massive part of who I was. In college, Chico State is this like crazy party school. Mm-hmm. And I was definitely kind of hitting rock bottom of my life at that point, and just kind of like searching, you know, going hard into like the world of just like meaninglessness. And I was really depressed and sad. And it was during that season that really my faith just bursted out and it became alive and felt like the grace of God. And I was writing at that time. So a lot of it was just the only thing it was just very true to me of like these feelings of like second chances, and like no matter how hopeless, because to me it felt like a lot of these kind of patterns that had followed me all through high school. And I was a pretty troubled kid that got in trouble, was getting arrested, and just, it felt like I couldn't get out of it. Like there was no way. I was out of my strength. It wasn't just like I was making bad choices. It was like I was destined for bad choices. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't escape them, was how I felt. And all of a sudden I was like freed from that whole thing. And it was like, all of a sudden I was like making decisions that were like good for me, and they were awesome. And it felt so good.
Was that an easy change?
It really was. Yeah. I mean, shockingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it had anything to do with me. I think that's the kind of, this idea that really still resonates with me. It's this kind of grace of God idea that if you really experience love, then you can give it. You can't earn love from your partner, you know, or something. It's like when you freely are giving love is like when you freely get it. I'm not articulating it well.
Yeah, you are.
But that concept really rocked me. So yeah, I was writing about that, but it was interesting coming from Eugene, Oregon. I knew nothing about any of the artists, like even Toby. I didn't really know his music. We didn't grow up with that kind of stuff. It was like, we grew up going to church, but it was like, we'd be listening to Paul Simon and Michael Jackson, and Eugene was kind of like a hippie town. So this is like, you know, Bob Dylan's Christian record era.
It wasn't immersed in gospel CCM stuff.
No, I didn't know of anything. Yeah. I had never heard it. So I was just following my muse and like what I loved. But if I had to play a song, it was at a coffee shop or somewhere. It wasn't like a captive audience. So your music had to just be good. It could be about things, it could be about whatever it wanted, but it had to be compelling to whoever was listening.
Okay.
So that was kind of the barometer. My heroes were, I wasn't really listening to any of that music, and I never really understood it. But having people embrace me in any industry was really powerful, and it was what I needed. But I don't know. I would say maybe there's like a youthful kind of passion to some of my earlier music that as you get older, you like get a little more metaphoric and veiled or bigger than really, really specific. Yeah. That is interesting to me now. But I would say that the same motivating factors have been there the whole time.
Did that happen pretty quick for you when you got here, when you got to Nashville?
Which part?
Just the making this your job. Just the deal.
Oh, it wasn't my job for a while, but you would have thought it was my job.
Right. Well, I mean, you got a deal.
I did. I was probably here. So I moved to Nashville. I got offered deals.
Okay.
I felt pretty clearly I did a few like youth group things or something, and I didn't understand that world, or that like, it didn't seem like it made sense to me to put music out in that world. So I actually turned them all down.
Okay.
Which is insane now thinking back about it, how it was just audacious of me to.
Well, you knew what you wanted also.
I did. I mean,
you at least saw, oh, this is not my lane.
No,
I want to go over here.
I worked at Starbucks. I was a soccer coach. I worked at banquet server at Opry Mills, Opryland Hotel.
I applied for one of those jobs back in the day.
Terrible.
I didn't get it.
Be thankful. They had a one size. You had to wear a tuxedo, a fake tuxedo, but they were like, they had a zipper down the side. Like it wasn't a tuxedo. It was like a onesie. And there was like 2 sizes with these like cinches. You could like cinch them up.
That's miserable.
So like there's like 5'9" girls in these swimming in these like cheap tuxedos with these weird ties. And you had to you were a banquet server, so you didn't make tips. You would just carry like 15 entrees on a tray, and they're in those big metal. So it was like,
clanking around.
Yeah, it was like, it was.
Did you ever drop them?
I didn't, but someone would, all the time.
I dropped those all the time.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Well, not all the time.
And the food was gross. It was just not a vibe.
I worked at a restaurant and dropped soup on a lady one time. That was bad. But how long did it take? So before it became your job?
So that would have been 2000. I moved here, and it probably took 3 or 4 years of just like.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, didn't feel like it at the time, but
they call it a 10-year town.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years till what ultimately happened was, once I turned down a record deal in like the Christian world, then they all started trying to offer me deals, and it was like, it's like the new girl at school or something. Mm-hmm. Like you say no, and then it makes people want, I don't know. It was just like they wanted to.
Who's this guy? Who does he think he is?
Yeah, exactly. And I was just scared, honestly. Yeah. And I said no. And eventually I just was like, what do we need? We just need money to make a record? Because all they were going to do is give us a budget for me and Robert to make a record. That's all we were doing. We were by ourselves. We didn't have any help. And I ended up raising some money, and it was like $25,000. Such a big deal, so much money. And we just made our own independent record. Mm-hmm. And that's the one that I licensed. In the meantime, I'd made relationships, and one label's like, hey, can you just license it to us? Like, just let us try to sell it for you.
Was this Nothing Left to Lose?
It was Bullet that became Bullet. Nothing Left to Lose.
Okay.
And in the course of maybe 3 months since I licensed it, Columbia Records heard it. Aware Records was like my dream label. And I was playing it for Matt Wirtz, who you had on your podcast. Mm-hmm. And he's a huge reason. We were in a car at Genghis Grill, my Honda Accord. And I was like, back then I probably was like, get in the car, get to listen to this record. I was so proud of it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've heard of you, man. Oh, I make music, come listen. And I like brought him in my car, put in a burn CD. And he was like, bro, I love this. He's like, this is so good. And he's like, give me a CD. So I remember giving him a CD, and he passed it on to his booking agent, who passed it on to his boss, who was friends with, and that guy was booking like John Mayer and Kings of Leon and all these bands. And he was like, dude, I love this. Can I send it to my friend at Aware Records? And I remember I was so scared. I'd said no to everyone. I was like, I don't know, man, if you should send it to anybody. Someone told me to lie to him, be like, this was CAA at the time, Creative Artists Agency. And they were like, tell him you have a meeting with William Morris, is the other big agent. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I've got another meeting with William Morris. So I'm not sure. Just like, who do you think you are working at Starbucks, bro? Like, this guy's trying to help you. And Scott Clayton, who's now running some UTA, he's an awesome dude. He sent it to Greg, and he's like, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. Sent it to Aware Records. I was playing a show the next night after that guy got my record in his town. It's just like total meant to be. Yeah. He couldn't stop listening to it. He came to the show. He's like, I want to sign you. And then it was kind of off to the races, and we took about a year of writing more songs, and Nothing Left to Lose came out, I think, 2006. Yeah. 2005, 2006.
And it's a great album.
Thanks, man.
I wore it out when it came out.
Me too.
Sure. It's got, I mean, one thing that I wanted to cover with you is while there are like more popular songs than others of yours, almost every song has got like a really good hook. You're really good at writing memorable hooks. And I'm curious where that comes from, or do you know?
I don't, I think you know when it's there. Yeah. Like, you know, there's like an energy to a certain group of words and melodies that get me excited. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the things I love in music is the marrying of like the songwriter that I like, James Taylor, Paul Simon, all these guys I grew up with like this. I almost put them in buckets. It's like there's cerebral song. There's like a cerebral side to music. Mm-hmm. It's like the argument. Country music is very much that way. It's like here's a lyrical kind of folk music is that way. You're appealing to people's brains with maybe an argument or images or some sort of word choices. Obviously the melody matters, but you're kind of appealing to people's brains. And then there's like visceral sides of music, which is like hip hop and Bob Marley. And it's like, you don't even have to speak the language. You put it on. It's one of my favorite things to do is watch a room when a song comes on. Mm-hmm. And like, you put a Bob Marley song on in any group of people, and they will all just kind of start
grooving.
Their bodies are responding to the music.
Right.
So for me, like, both of those are something I value so much that I'm always trying to like have both. It's like, I can't just write like music that's like surfacey, just body. And I do write some more just cerebral stuff, like a folk. You're kind of just you and a guitar, and this song's kind of an argument or just images. But my true love is when you marry them all. And so I think searching for melodies has to do with that same thing. There's like this visceral thing you feel when certain melodies or notes happen that I'm just like, yes, that's it.
Do you have like a formula for that, or like a, you just kind of know when it happens? Do you have like in your process of writing? So like a song that I might use as an example that I heard once and couldn't get out of my head is a Good Thing. You Got a Good Thing Going. Yeah, I can't stop singing that hook. You just hummed it, and for the rest of today, it'll be in my brain.
Well, I wish I could take more. I mean, as good as I am, which is, thank you for saying that. I'm trying to be humble now that I said that.
No, it's good.
But probably what I'm better at is identifying them. So that was Trent Dabbs was just singing that in the room. Yeah. When I walked in one day at a co-write, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. What is this? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't even know. I think I wrote maybe the beat, the like the alternate section of that chorus, but it was pretty much
the wrong example, but
pretty
still,
much done.
Still, so many of your songs. Like one of my favorites right now, I haven't heard the whole new record, but one of my favorites is Kevlar. That song's super cool. It's not as poppy as the other ones. That's probably why I like it, because that's how I'm wired. But it's still like everything's got like this thread that's super hooky.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to try to get to the bottom of that with you, but
I don't know if it's anything other than, I think I'm learning so much of music is taste. It's like, it's not necessarily, for me, I'm not like, I haven't had the ability my whole life. So what I've had to lean on is my taste. Like,
right.
And that's just like knowing, trying to acknowledge when your body and when you are excited about something.
What goes in is what comes out.
Yeah. I mean, what you're digesting sure matters, but like, I think at my core, there's like some part of this barometer when I love how it makes my body feel and my brain and the dopamine receptors, I'm like, try to pay attention to that.
Yeah. And speaking of songs on your new record, let's talk about Headlights Home.
I love it.
We're going to listen to the work tape of this. And just to preface for our listeners, you sent me 3 versions of the demo, the work tape. Yeah, I think it was 3. So I'm going to splice them together. So you hear a little bit of each version, and then we'll listen to like the fully formed work tape. We'll do that right now, and then we'll break things down. Cool?
Yeah.
Cool.
I will say this. This is the one song that is not typical of my songs, which is an interesting choice because it was such a departure from all of the different versions. Usually they come more packaged and whole if they're good songs. Like they tend to exist in one moment. And for all the songwriters out there that are like slaving on these things they think are good, I don't know. I've killed myself weeks on songs that are never good. They're never going to be good. And then the easy ones you write in 15 minutes, and it's so frustrating. And they're the biggest songs. This was one that put up a fight, and there's a few, like Ships in the Night was one where you felt like, wow, that broke the mold of this idea that a good song just comes in one package.
Right. All right, let's listen to the work tape, and then we'll unpack it.
Don't you get me in the wrong way? Why don't you be on me? Yeah. Why don't you get me the wrong way? Why did you let me so long? And I really feel. What is that? That's sick. But on the dream you were saying tonight. But on the day you dream tonight. But on the dream you dream tonight. Going right down on the day you say. Leave the light on for me. Back where I long to be. Back where my love lies sleeps. Driving away in Tennessee. Teardrops on the telephone. You know I can't. Smile, but I'm bleeding inside. Rack up the miles, leaving you behind. Running down the dream while you're standing by this time. Can't get you out of my mind. Leave the light on for me. You know I can't sleep. Running a flatline heartbeat. Dying to get back to Tennessee. Tears on the telephone. You know I can't let it go. Chasing these twilight roads. Dying to till I get a roll these headlights home. These headlights home. Solo window dinner table tonight. The hungry lovers out, but I got no appetite. The city's writing her letters in lies. This time they don't feel like mine. Leave the light on for me. You know I can't sleep. Running a flat line on the beat. Dying to get back to Tennessee. Tears on the telephone. You know I can't let go. Chasing these wildlife roads. Taking these headlights home. 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 Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on, leave the light on for me. Leave the light on me. Oh, I can't let you go. Riding this ride down the road. Dying till I get a roll. These headlights home. These headlights home.
Okay, I love this work tape. It's cool to hear the process. Who did you write the song with? Who did we hear in there?
Well, so the first thing you hear is my buddy Eli Teplin, who wrote a bunch with me on my January Flower records. It's unbelievable. And we had gone out to Joshua Tree just to write. And I went with one of my best friends, who's a painter, Marshall Roman. He's been one of my best friends since I was in kindergarten. And we just went to I was going to go record, but we stayed at this house that was like in the middle of nowhere, and this storm blew through and we had no power, and we're basically in the dark the whole time. I think by this time we'd gotten a little power and I'd started making like a little beat or something. But I just had that, it sat in my, that inside. And he was like, yo, what was that?
Yeah.
And I had that for 4 years in just my Dropbox or in my phone in a voice note.
How do you know how to go back to those?
They just,
There's so many, I imagine.
Well, there's some though, if you think about it, it wasn't me listening to a voice note. It was like this thing that I had remembered. I was like, that thing. I think memory is a huge part of songwriting and recall, and like for me, and I had never been able to shake that. But that wasn't even on my radar. And I had gone in to write with Jordan Minton and Jordan Reynolds, two country and great writers in general. Someone had set it up. I'd never met them. And I think I don't even know if I had the title. I think I had the title Headlights Home. And we wrote the lyric to it. Totally different. I don't even have a demo of it. It was a total different tempo, totally different chords, totally different melody. And I spent probably a week in my studio trying to get this thing. And I didn't like it. But I loved the lyric of it. I was like, this idea is cool. and it hadn't sunk in. Oftentimes there's a chorus. This is a common experience, is I have a chorus idea that feels big, simple, and to the point. And you can either double down on the verses, just rewrite that point. It's what a lot of pop music does. What's more interesting to me though is like, what's the weird or like the story, or what colors this verse what verse could I write that is a departure from the chorus that keeps me interested in it?
Yeah.
Brandon Flowers is like the best at that. Killers. Yes. Like the verse is like opioid addiction came to town and kids were doing this, and like he's talking about very specific town, and the chorus is like eagles with golden spotted wings, and we were just trying to figure out a way to get down the hills, and and like something about those two things together is so interesting to me. Like these big, that's a thing I love doing often, is contrasting. If you have a very specific verse, like getting the chorus to be this like Monet moment that's just expressionist.
Right.
You don't even really know what you're talking about, but you feel it. Those two things are when you marry those, it's like my favorite kind of song. And I remembered this voice note after a week of toiling with this, and I was sitting on vacation and I was playing those old chords, just two chords, just 4, 6, 5, 6, 4, 6, 5, Teenage Dream, or there's a million songs that are those chords.
Yeah.
And I just started singing that old melody. And I was like, oh, what if I put those lyrics in? Leave the light on for me. I had to change the melody. I can't
Okay, so
sleep.
you have the lyrics before.
Not normal. It's not a normal thing. Usually they come at the same time.
And let's unpack the lyrics a little bit. So it sounds like these lyrics are about you being on tour.
Yeah, it's a road song.
It's a road song.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yep. Crack a smile, but I'm bleeding inside. Rack up the miles, leaving you behind. Chasing down a dream while you're standing by. This time, can't get it out of my mind.
Right.
Yeah, I think having kids, it's a weird position I'm in this season. I have never loved touring more. I've never been better at it. I've never been more free on stage. I've never been more gratified by the process of playing a live show. Never appreciated it more in my life. I've never not cared as much what people think, which has led to this freedom I've had. I've never practiced more, never taken it more seriously.
Why?
I don't know. I think that's a great question. I think identity dying to kind of the artist identity, like when Nothing Left to Lose hit, it was such a shock to me to go from working at Starbucks to being popular and on the charts. Mm-hmm. It made me very self-conscious, self-aware. It changed, it warped my identity of myself in some ways that took 10 years to undo.
You feel like you were faking it?
No, I think human nature wants to find their identity in the things people celebrate about them. Mm-hmm. It's just it's like you're a good looking person, you're smart, you're a good argumentative person, you serve people well, you're a great chef. Like all of those things, then it's easy to start moving more and more of your identity into that. And this is who I am. I am the successful, talented, whatever, insert whatever. And I had that shaken a few times, all of a sudden not as many people come to a show. You had like 20% less in the same city. You're like, wait, I remember I was going through this season maybe 2 or 3 records ago, and my wife was like, yo, this doesn't feel like the way it would wreck me was like not healthy. It was not, it wasn't, it was like too much. And she pointed it out to me. She's like, hey, this feels like something's out of whack. And that began a process of just kind of dying to this idea that I am an artist primarily, or I am this musician, or I'm assigned to a major label, or I'm on the radio, or I'm successful, or I sell records, or people like me. All of whatever, insert whatever you want that kind of you think is supposed to be a good thing. Because at the core, you're not that. You're so much more than that. Everyone is. You're a brother, a husband, a friend, a child of God. You're like, you are, if all of a sudden I couldn't sing, if I like ripped the tendons in my hand, or I had vocal surgery and I could no longer sing, would I still exist as a person? Would I no longer exist?
Sure.
And if you put all your identity in things, then you don't exist anymore. If you're an NFL player and all of a sudden you retire, like if your identity is solely in that, who are you? And I think as you get older, everyone goes through this. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think the freedom that you feel now to be on the road in regards to this song, do you think it has to do with the fact that
I tangented hard, didn't I? Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. Do you think that has to do with the fact that you do have a family now and you need to make it worth it? And so you're just like, whatever, I'm going to do this, because the question is being away worth it?
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge factor.
Right.
I don't think it's because of the family. I think the family, my kids, are a microscope into that in a beautiful way. They shine a light onto who are you, why, what matters, more than they fuel it. Would
you rather be home? Like if you could just be songwriter guy in town?
No, I love it. I love what I do.
Yeah.
So to finish the point that I never finished a long time ago, it's the most fun I've ever had, but it is the hardest it's ever been.
Okay.
So it's the most, I am the most heartbroken being gone. I feel like I ache for my girls and yeah, I don't think it's wrong. I think looking at your kids and being like, hey, there's something you love, like it's going to require a sacrifice by you and everyone around you. I don't think that's a bad lesson for them to learn.
I'm not saying at all that it's wrong.
Yeah.
You're either away for work or you're away for work. It just depends on, your work. I remember the first time I dropped my kids off at the airport and their mom took them to Florida or something. And the first time I ever felt like that, oh, this is what this feels like. And I was not expecting this, like, well up. Like they're just going on vacation and you're staying back for a few days. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. So that's why I asked that. I think it's interesting. Hopefully at this point you can bring them out more.
Yeah. And I don't hit it as hard. And we figured out a rhythm that works better. I never leave for more than, it's like, I don't have to toil as much. A big year, is I'm gone for a couple of weeks and then I'm home for 6.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Then I'm gone for 2 weeks and I'm home for 6. It's like, I'm definitely, we've found a pace that works. But,
cool.
But yeah, that song was driven by that feeling. During that process of kind of identity, me and my wife were talking through, I was realizing I used to go on the road and just be like, if it was just us, like I'm good. Like she could come out and visit all you wanted, but I didn't really need much. Mm-hmm. And weirdly, I became less secure on the road in just being by myself. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I need you guys. Like I need you to FaceTime me with our daughters. Mm-hmm. Like I need
keep you grounded as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Or I just needed it. It was like, I can't live without you guys in my life. Yeah. Even if I'm gone for like a weekend, I just have a greater need, less independent in a good way, maybe. Yeah. And that song, I remember I was sitting at a restaurant. You're always like trying to find food that's healthy, that doesn't give you heartburn. Show day, like finding food is like part of the challenge. Okay. Like, is a singer.
Yes.
And I do a VIP thing now. So your days, like you go sound check, you've got maybe an hour, then you've got a VIP thing where I play this acoustic. I love it, but I play a couple acoustic songs with like 50 people. It's really one of my favorite parts of the night. But then I got another hour, 2 hours before showtime. Your just day is packed. And so you're like, but you maybe don't want to get stopped. You're not like eating where the line is lining up for the show, but you're looking for your little spot you can grab, like whatever's gonna sit well in your stomach. After show, you can have your pizza if you want.
Sure.
But and I was sitting in this booth, and it's like you're looking at the marquee with my name on it in this line of people, and I remember just feeling that day like you get to see all these beautiful places. You're in these cool, but you're like, man, there's still an ache of like the people the person I love the most isn't with me doing this right now. And yeah, what's the second verse? It starts with like it's one of my favorite lyrics on the record.
With you eating dinner at the window.
Yeah, the hungry lover's out, but I got no appetite. It's like all these, people are getting ready. They're going on a date to the show.
Yeah,
and you're just like sitting with your head down, trying to scarf a rice bowl. You know,
eating potato chips or something before the show.
Yeah,
and it's such a good song. Worth mentioning. Brook the Bluff is on it.
Yeah.
Micah Tawlks produced it. I really love it. It's a really great tune. Last question, just for time's sake. Would you consider making a full hip hop album ever? I think you could do it. I was listening to some of the older stuff, and I was like purposely finding the ones with your more rap, spoken word stuff. You've got the cadence and the timbre to make it really cool.
Yeah.
Like,
okay,
thing. Maybe like an EP.
You know what's funny is I've been digging. It's always like I don't really set out like style of a record. Like I definitely have a wide net of influences at this point. There's like more folk leaning stuff, maybe even country, rock, more way hip hop leaning, super pop stuff. Like that's kind of the bag I've grabbed from. I'm definitely not as interested in like maybe I just it's where I'm at is like real instrumentation or like interesting real instrumentation. It'd still be sampley, but it feels like you're not quite sure if it's like a breakbeat or like Haim or
where you'd want to do something like the Roots, like a band.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a band. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's just like real instruments, but then it's like, it's not just here's like an 808 and snaps. So like that is just not interesting to me right now. Okay. But it's funny. I've been picking that up a little bit. Like I've been playing all these acoustic shows and it's just like groove, low end, me with a guitar and words. That's all you have. And I was kind of realizing like, oh, this is like kind of me. Mm-hmm. Like this is the margarita pizza of what I am. It's like the groove, the melody, and the lyric. And I've been writing a little more rhythmic stuff, like almost like G-Love and like the early, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like even Jack Johnson's a big influence, like with like a more Tribe Called Quest version.
That could be cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been messing with. It's been really fun.
Yeah. Something like Original Rude Boys, you know them?
I don't.
Oh, you should look them up. It's weird, but it's like this acoustic, spoken word,
cool
hip hop thing.
The interesting part you're always trying to marry with like more hip hop leaning stuff is it a lot of what gives it power is it's not trying to be timeless. It's not trying. It's like it's happening. You're in the moment. Like why I like hip hop music is it's unfolding before your eyes. Like it feels like he wrote this, she wrote this like 5 minutes ago, and like 5 minutes before I'm hearing it coming through my speakers. Yeah, not all the time. Like I listen to Tribe Called Quest stuff, but it still feels like this isn't throwback or something. But I also love kind of like timeless songs and feelings. So it's always trying to like, how do you marry that? Like a story is always a great, like if you're going to do like a hip hop verse, a story kind of can do both things. Yeah. Can feel immediate and like timeless at the same time. So that's always the challenge when I enter that world. It could be like, you can easily write like about now and sometimes that's not interesting.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Matt Kearney, thanks for being here.
Hey man, love talking about songs.
My one request as we sign off is, because you're a happy guy, can we get an album cover where you're smiling?
Just one. I don't know how to smile. Who smiles?
Nobody smiles on an album cover.
Maybe that's the thing.
You want to use your LinkedIn profile for your album cover?
Like Aphex Twin there was a big smiley guy.
Yeah, but his was creepy.
So like a creepy smile.
You could do a creepy smile. That'd be good.
Didn't Bob Dylan with the girl where he's holding her? Is he smiling? He's got his arm around the girl. It's kind of it's like a smirk.
I think you could change things now with the smile. I think you would be a massive influence on album art.
Just cheesing.
Everyone's like, oh, we should start smiling.
Just cheesing it up.
Yeah. Everyone's so serious on it now.
I'll consider that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Worktapes is produced by me, Brandon Carswell. Filming and editing by Sean Carswell. Special thanks to Matt Kearney. You can find more info about Matt at mattkearney.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Worktapes wherever you're listening.